Episode 8, the Thomas and Terrell Show. What's up, bro?
What's going on, bro? How are you?
Good, good. We got a lot to talk about.
We definitely do. We definitely do.
First, what's going on in your life?
Whew, man, this happy to get through this week, man. It's been a crazy, crazy week, man. Just dealing with what's going on in the news and life in general. They say life be lifing, but the good news is we're here to see another day.
Right. Everybody's been talking about this presidential debate, and I have some news for you. I didn't even watch it.
No, not you.
You know what? It's probably the first debate that I did not watch. I think probably in the last 20 years. Because I was a little nerd. I was in politics or watching politics, observing it with interest as a sport since I was probably 12 years old. You'll get the newspaper. Remember those? The newspaper?
What you mean, do I remember those? Yes, we talk about newspaper routes. Come on now.
Other people would grab the sports page. I grabbed the section A, the front
Man, why
page.
you talking about me, man? Why you trying?
Dudes always come up grabbing the sports page. Hey, can I get your sports page? They could have it every time. I wasn't reading the sports page. I was watching the politics and the news. I was just a nerd like that. But this last debate, I did not watch it, but apparently I didn't miss much.
Mm-mm. A bunch of question dodging, a bunch of damn, and I was the best president, you was the worst president ever. You know, I don't think this was the best debate for either candidate. I think it was a weak debate for both candidates. I look forward to see what the next debate is going to be like, to see how they tackle the topics. Once again, especially if you're talking about child tax credits, you're talking about lowering the deficit, you're talking about how much money is going out for the war, you're talking about health care, just taxes in general. How much should the wealthy be taxed versus the everyday person? And then there's the topic of abortion. And then there's the other topic that is going to be a hot thing to talk about that has never been in any other election, which makes this election unique. One of the candidates, as of right now, is a convicted felon. And here's the thing, there is no law that says a convicted felon cannot run for the office of president. All you got to do is be born in the U.S., be 35 years old, at least 35 years old. And those are the bare minimums to run for the office of president. Nothing to do with if you're a convicted felon or not. So the hot topic when it comes to that is you can't be a felon and join the military. You can't be a felon and join some of to go vote in some of the states. You can't get certain jobs, especially if there are military installations, as a felon, and you can't own a firearm, and you can't travel abroad. However, as president, you got to travel abroad. So how does that affect him being able to do the job? And how does that affect the everyday felon that doesn't have these type of opportunities? So that brings up, what do we do far as the Department of Justice revamping the judicial system on how we treat felons when they come out of jail? How do we reintegrate them into society and allow them to be productive citizens and not just fall at the bottom of the barrel, as most do? You have those that are very successful, but what about the majority of them that don't have that option to fall back on? I have the people out there to help them and get this great paying job and run for office and that, and not be judged on their past. What do we do about it? So hey, it's as you said, a lot to talk about.
So, are you suggesting that either there should be additional requirements to be president of the United States, such as not being a convicted felon, or people who are convicted felons should be given more opportunities that the president of the United States, as a convicted felon, might enjoy?
Well, me being the smart person I am, I'm not going to take that bait. What I am going to do is say this: it has to be looked at from both sides, because if you can be a convicted felon as of right now and run for the office of president and run a whole country, but you can't go get a job or join the military, so it's something that really has to be thought about on how do we fix this situation? How do we correct it? Because we talk about second chances, but does everybody really get a fair second chance? So no. So that means we have to visit how do we sit here and come to a common ground. Now, either it's going to be no, you can't run for the office as a convicted felon, or hey, as a convicted felon, if you're able over a certain time, despite certain felonies, you may be able to join the military and get certain jobs, or wiped out altogether.
Well, to change the requirements to run for president of the United States, that only can be done by an amendment to the United States Constitution, and 2/3 of the state legislatures must ratify that. I don't think that's going to happen.
It's
But
not.
you might be onto something, because I understand that all of the branches of the military are below their requirements for recruiting, and perhaps by allowing people with felonies to apply to become members of the military, perhaps that would solve part of the problem. I don't know if immigrants or undocumented immigrants can become members of the military, but there's at least 20 million of them here that's come here in the last 5-6 years. So and that's really sped up during the Biden administration. Perhaps that's an answer, that you get to become a naturalized citizen or a naturalized resident or citizen if you join the military. Do you think that's a viable solution? As a member of the military yourself, what do you think about that?
But that already happens with the military. We have people from different countries that join our military and get their naturalization done while they're in the military. I mean, you're talking about from the Philippines, you're talking about Africa, you're talking about from South America, all these different countries that people have joined the military and got their naturalization done by joining the military. And so that is already there. Here's the thing that you got to look about. One, when you're talking about all these people coming, especially undocumented people, one, you don't know if they have a criminal past or what they're running from, and from the other country. Then you're worried about, hey, you get this training, are you taking it back to do other things, to get inside information, do inside job? That goes for any person coming from anywhere. So you gotta look at a lot of things with dealing with this. And so the thing that we have to understand, this is not going to be something that's going to have an answer overnight on how do we fix this, how do we come to a common ground and get things right. This is something that literally has to be thought about very, very hard and be very thorough on what we do, on how we attack it, what we're going to allow and what we're not going to allow, and what is going to be the stickler for people to do certain things. It's a very uncomfortable conversation that's going to happen, very sticky conversation, but it's a conversation that must be had. And that what happened with President Trump and his trial and his conviction has brought this to the forefront. So it's going to be, interesting to see how it's talked about, if it's talked about on a level of bringing reform or not.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you as a lawyer, what's your standpoint on this?
Well, as an attorney, my firm has represented dozens and dozens of clients in having their criminal records expunged, felonies and misdemeanors. And I think it's something that's very important. And I also used to be the president of an organization that stood for helping ex-offenders reintegrate into society. It's called Team for Justice here in the Detroit area. So I think that's something that's very important, that you have ex-offenders. They might have made a bad decision, a bad choice in their life. They might have a conviction. Yeah, and we all know at this point, some people are convicted who are actually innocent. So those are included as well. But in any event, after prison or after probation or parole, and as they try to reintegrate into society, they should be given an opportunity to do that. There's a big push in a lot of states to call ban the box, ban the question about have you been convicted of a felony, or certain employers allowing people to work in their corporations and companies that have felony convictions. And I think that government, individuals, corporations will be well served to take applicants on a case by case basis. Look at their character, their work experience, their education, their particular circumstances in determining whether they're employable or not. Now, perhaps you have some sensitive positions that convicted felons or certain convicted felons should not be allowed to be employed. You wouldn't have somebody who's a multiple convicted sex offender working in childcare or working in a school, for example. Right. But perhaps that person might have a conviction for some type of white collar offense or some type of I don't know, off the top of my head, something maybe a driving offense, something unrelated to that job that they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I don't think a person's entire life should be judged by their worst moment.
I agree with you on that. That they shouldn't be judged by the worst moment. It's a guy that I've seen that's a motivational speaker who was a felon. He was a big time gang leader, and he was a big leader in jail. I mean, he was like in the top 2 as far as who runs the prison. And he was talking about how he told the warden, he walked out of his cell and was like, because he wanted to have a cheeseburger at a certain time of night, and it wasn't even meal hours. And they allowed him to walk out the cell and go into the kitchen. And the warden was like, who are you? Why are you in my kitchen? He said, I'm the one that decides if you go home or not tonight in a body bag or alive. And now he's a motivational speaker, has a degree from Harvard, teaching these guys like, hey, you know, you can change your life. You can do better. You got to expand your mind, expand your horizons. That is more to life than just what you see in these streets. It's a better way of living your life and a better quality of life and be more productive. He goes into the prison, sets up programs for these guys to be rehabilitated. And, you know, he's a true activist. I can't remember his name right now, but he's a good example of people that change for the better and is trying to do something and help other people. It's another one that, hey, he does good with trucking.
I think you're talking about Andre Norman.
Is he bald-headed?
Yeah.
That might be him.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But it's another guy that helps guys coming out of prison get their CDL license and start their own trucking company, being able to get their own trucks and being productive and making money. And I mean, it's phenomenal. And he has like a whole list of people that he goes back and checks on that are being very productive, making good money. I mean, but these are people that are actually doing something that, hey, they made a mistake, but they, you know, turned their life around and are doing better.
Yeah, and I think we all know people in our personal lives. I certainly know a lot of people, either from college or from the neighborhood or just from my life in general, my career as an attorney. People with very good character, very good accomplishment, even some practicing attorneys who have felony convictions. Typically, a felony conviction will result in the permanent revocation of a law license, but there are some people who are convicted of felonies who might lose their law license for a period of time, but regain it. And I know some excellent attorneys who had felony convictions while they were practicing and came back to be good attorneys. I know accountants who have felony convictions and have gotten their licenses back and are practicing in their trade in accounting. So there's a lot of, I think you bring up a good point, and I think that's something that should be expanded. Again, you know, there's some positions that people with certain felony convictions shouldn't have, but people need to keep an open mind. I remember in college that people, if you had a drug conviction, you couldn't get financial aid. And I knew people who had to drop out of school because they had a drug conviction. This was back in the 90s, the early 90s. Remember, it was in the 80s where Congress passed and the president signed a bill that had strict sentencing for hey man, you thirsty tonight? What
Man,
you on a track meet or something?
first of all, don't judge me because I like to stay hydrated. Second of all, I've been out in the heat
Oh yeah.
for most of the day. And third of all, I went to the gun range, and you know the gun range is not particularly that cool all
Oh
the
yeah.
time.
The gun range is hot. It gets hot in the gun range.
So, yes, I'm thirsty. I'm rehydrating my body, sir. Excuse me.
Okay.
Come on here, judge me. Yeah, are you
Okay.
thirsty tonight? Yeah, I'm thirsty.
Every time I look at you on the screen, you drinking something. What are you
Well,
drinking,
stop
by the way?
looking at me, dang it. Stop looking.
What are you drinking?
High quality H2O.
Oh, very good. Very good. But yeah, but from that 94 no, it was the 94 crime bill. I'm sorry, the 94 crime bill
President
was
Clinton.
yeah, Clinton. It was the crack cocaine sentencing. But even before that, there was a law that said that if you had a felony conviction, that you couldn't get financial aid. And these were people who may have made some bad decisions in their teenage life or early adult life, and you can't go to college. Clearly, if you're trying to go to college, you're trying to do something better with yourself. It seems to me that it's wrong to punish someone who has been rehabilitated to prevent them from doing something to improve their life. By preventing them from going to college, what you're doing is you're dooming them perhaps to a life of crime. I didn't understand that policy then. I don't understand it now. And on one hand, you have people who are victims of crime who say, well, for example, people in prison, there's some programs to allow them to get higher education, get degrees, and things like that. And you have the family members of victims of crime, perhaps a family member of somebody who was murdered, and say, my child or my relative can't get an education anymore. Or even on the outside, I can't get money to go to college. Why should somebody in prison get that opportunity when they victimize someone and we can't get that same opportunity out here? And that's a persuasive argument to many legislators because it's, they don't want to be embarrassed in the media or some forum by a victim or victim's family saying something like that.
Well, let me play devil's advocate. When people say that, how many of those people that say that are really gonna take an advantage of that, of being able to get that money and go to school? What about the ones that are victims that died that was breaking into somebody's house that wasn't doing what they were supposed to do? What about the families of the family members of the victim that's still in the hood selling drugs and doing other stuff, making this argument, but you ain't going to use it anyway. You're not going to use it. So that's just me playing devil's advocate. However, you make a valid point. But if we're talking about making these people pay the penalty or as we say, pay the time for the crime, if they paid their time and we're going to release them back into society, why wouldn't we want them to be better than what they were for when they went in, when they come out? To me, that is setting up society for success versus setting it up for failure. Because if we release them and let them be the same person that they were when they went in, then what's the point?
I hear you. And I think that the Trump campaign is probably watching right now and want to hire you because I think you're making an argument. I think on the down low, you're making an argument that President Trump shouldn't be penalized for being a convicted felon, having 34 counts. I think that's what I hear you saying. But you might receive a phone call.
I think what you hear me saying is exactly what I'm saying, and not saying it for anybody else. I'm saying it. Well, I am saying it for other people. I'm saying it for the people that don't have this platform and aren't able to voice their voices aren't able to be heard. Their opinions aren't able to be heard, or they don't know how to express their opinions in the proper manner. And I think that it needs to be dealt with and it needs to be heard, no matter who it is. Because what's crazy to me is we got people that, like, when Enron went down, they stole these people whole retirement. People lost their livelihoods, they lost their houses, kids lost their college funds, everything. They went to jail, come back out, they get a six-figure paying job sitting on somebody else's board, chilling. Nobody judged them for being a felon. Nobody, you know what I'm saying, penalized them. They buddies hooked them up. And they get to do whatever they want and live their good life. But everybody else that was working for them don't have that. They weren't able to recover. A lot of people committed suicide over this stuff. Marriages were destroyed for this stuff. No health care coverage, no penalty.
Well,
So I have a problem.
Let me ask you a question. That in certain municipalities, Chicago, I think perhaps St. Louis, certain cities in Florida, you also have New York City, Los Angeles, that you have mayors who received substantial campaign donations from George Soros, who has a philosophy that crimes are over prosecuted. And so some of these places, and Seattle might be another one, San Francisco, where, for example, the prosecutor comes out and says that, or even a law was passed. It might have been a law in California that said that if you steal less than $1,000 worth of goods, it would not be prosecuted or would not be prosecuted as a felony. And so what you have is gangs of people going in. It might be 10 people, and each person steals less than $1,000 worth, but they go in and they wipe a store out. And so do you think a solution to the problem that we're discussing here today, is simply not prosecuting people who commit crimes or commit what used to be crimes?
No, I'm not saying that whatsoever. What I'm saying is if we're talking about giving people second chances, then let's make sure we get them ready and prepared for that second chance, and be a person of our word and give them a fair shake at a second chance in life. Now, if you mess that up, then that's on you. But if you're not getting a fair shake from the beginning, you know, a lot of them already feel like, well, I'm defeated. What's the point? I might as well stay where I was at. I can't get no job, so I can't make no money. I'm gonna get in trouble if I sell drugs. I'm gonna get in trouble if I, laundering money or doing something else. So what do you want me to do? I can't survive off just a fast food check or working at a car wash or whatever. Everybody doesn't allot me the same opportunity. So yeah, it's messed up, because to me, you have, hey, if you up here, you commit this crime and a felony, we're gonna make sure you taken care of. But then if you down here and you commit these felonies, then you just assed out.
So you saying we have
a tale of the two different tiers of felons, if you got the money in the people and if you don't got the money in the people.
Right. Right. Well, I agree with you largely, and that's been an issue that's been important for a very long time.
All right, yeah.
And I'm glad that this issue with President Trump, it's an opportunity to revisit that issue.
Yeah.
So who do you think?
Another one.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
What's another one?
Another one is they were talking from the debate was talking about abortion.
Okay.
And the right. Now you have President Trump that said, hey, he wants to give it back to the state to make the decision and go for it. And he's not for a late term abortion, where he was saying that President Biden is. President Biden said he didn't say he was for a late term abortion. Then it's like, what are you saying? And it wasn't much of what he was saying. Neither one of them really answered the question. But we talked about this in a past episode as far as abortion. and the right of abortion in Roe versus Wade. And who's able to do it? And does the federal government have a say so? Or should you leave it to the state level? You know, who's to tell a woman that she can't have a baby? Or, you know, you should have a baby? These are questions that have been asked, and the answers haven't been that great. You know, so it's another hot topic when it's coming to this campaign for presidency.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, who do you think made the best argument in that discussion during the debate?
I mean, neither one of them really made the best to me. Like I said, this was a weak debate to me for both of them. Both of them need to make a recovery. They both had rallies the following day. President Biden had one in North Carolina. President Trump had one here in Virginia and Chesapeake, not far from my house. So it remains to be seen. It seems like at the rally they seemed a little bit better. It was a stronger vibe and better conviction in their answers. But let's see it. You know, and I had a neighbor bring it up to my attention that normally you don't have a presidential debate until after the national convention, when they announce who their candidates are going to be.
So let's talk about that. This is the earliest presidential debate ever.
Correct.
And as you indicated, it's typically not until after the conventions. This debate was 2 months before the Democratic National Convention, 1 month before the Republican convention. It was Vivek Ramaswamy who said that this is a part of a scheme. And I think he's right. And I tend to agree with him. And here's the scheme. I was surprised that Joe Biden agreed, or his people agreed to this debate, because there were people, the talking heads on TV, saying Joe Biden shouldn't debate Donald Trump, shouldn't even give him that opportunity. The Biden campaign could have come out and said, we're not going to debate a convicted felon. They could have come out and said, we're not going to debate somebody who lies so much. We're not going to debate somebody who tried to overthrow the government. This is what the Biden administration could have said. And there are a lot of people, perhaps independents, a lot of Democrats, and maybe even some quote unquote moderate Republicans who would have agreed with that. And we've known since 2019, 2020 that Joe Biden is just, he doesn't speak well. I mean, he ran his last campaign from the basement. He draws, he's not a charismatic speaker. He doesn't draw crowds. I mean, he's just not a great debater. He never has been. So they should have dodged the debate. Why would they agree to a debate with Donald Trump at all? And they came with these restrictions. Okay, so be it. But perhaps that Joe Biden's people or somebody on the inside at the DNC put Joe Biden up to this as a test to see whether he was prepared. And if he failed, as he did, that would give the Democrats an opportunity to replace him at the convention. If the first debate wasn't until after the convention, it would be too late because they've already nominated him. Even though Joe Biden won enough delegates in the primaries to become the nominee for the Democratic Party, there are maneuvers that can be made by the bigwigs in the party at the convention to actually select somebody else because they make their own rules.
That is correct.
And so that might still happen. It was interesting to see how the night of the debate and afterwards, you had all of these people hand wringing, all of his boosters on, MSNBC and CNN saying Joe Biden should get out of the race. You had the New York Times in the last day or so, their editorial board came out and said Joe Biden should do the best thing for the country and drop out of the race. James Carville, who ran Bill Clinton's campaign, and a very respected person in the Democratic Party say Joe Biden should get out. You had Maureen Dowd from the New York Times, a columnist, say that Joe Biden should drop out. I mean, it's absolutely remarkable. Joe Biden goes to a campaign event the day after the debate, and he does well by Joe Biden standards. And he had a teleprompter.
Well,
I don't know.
it sounds like you're a big fan of Joe Biden there, bud.
Listen, you have Republicans who aren't great speakers. I mean, you think Tim Scott. I mean, I like, Tim Scott is, I'm not,
Lord knows,
or who's the Ben Carson, for example. Ben Carson is obviously a very smart person, but he's not a great speaker. I wouldn't imagine he's a great debater. He's not a very charismatic speaker. So it's not a judgment on Joe Biden to say that he's not a great debater or a great speaker. So
when Ben Carson talking reminds me of the Visine commercial guy, the professor, dry eyes.
Oh, that's the guy from Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, Bueller. Yeah, that's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, he'll put you to sleep. He'll put you to sleep. So that's who Joe Biden is, but perhaps they're still looking to replace him. I don't think that whole conversation is over. Now Joe Biden has come out and says, I'm running. His people have come out and said that under no circumstances will he not run. He is the candidate.
Well, and the question is, who would they replace him with? Some people say the Vice President Harris. But she has a shaky track record too, with debating and pulling crowds. Who in the Democratic Party could they bring in, and that would straight bring enough energy and force to rally the people to gather the votes if the sitting president, who should be the front runner, is not going to be the front runner? Some people even went as far as said that former First Lady Michelle Obama should be run.
Yeah, I've heard her name, and a lot of people believe that if she was the nominee, that she would win. I don't know about that. The problem that you have is the natural person to select is Kamala Harris. But I mean, there's some questions about Kamala Harris's presentation. I mean, the laughing, some of the bizarre ways that she articulates her points kind of sound like word salads. I mean, it's all about presentation. I think Kamala Harris is a very smart person, but it's the charisma factor, it's the presentation factor. That's why a lot of people point to Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. He has the hair, he has the height, he has the look. All of that stuff matters. I mean, because in a lot of ways, running for president is a popularity contest and how you present, who looks better on the TV. And Gavin Newsom has that look, according to some people. But there's a lot of folks, Black folks, women, would have a problem if you jump over Kamala Harris to get to Gavin Newsom. And people would have a problem with that. And Kamala Harris is poses some issues. I mean, you look at her popularity, is probably lower than Joe Biden's and lower than Donald Trump's. She she's had some issues in keeping her staff. So I think there are a lot of attack lines that could go against Kamala Harris. In my opinion, Gavin Newsom as well. You look at the condition of California, Gavin Newsom might have the look, but Gavin Newsom hasn't been a very good leader or effective leader in California, and all of the issues that they have, some of the crazy legislation that they've had. So it's going to be tough because any of those candidates have serious issues: Biden, Newsom, and Kamala Harris.
So hence brings me back to, what if former First Lady Michelle Obama is picked?
My understanding is that she doesn't like she doesn't like politics. She certainly doesn't like confrontational politics. She doesn't like the mudslinging. And if she is the nominee, she's going to get a lot of mud thrown at her. Now, she might do it. But you know, they're not going to hold any punches going after Michelle Obama. I think that
No,
I think she would be a better candidate than Joe Biden. I mean,
they're going to do a lot of punches towards what her husband's policies were when he was in office and what he did. The one thing I would talk about with Vice President Harris is her lack of presence, as far as what we're seeing her do and speak up on things and being involved with more where the people see her. The real connection with her being seen. She's been a really low key. To me, it reminds me of Vice President Pence. This is pretty much like you're non-existent in a sense.
how can you say that she was assigned by Joe Biden to be over the border czar? Well, she didn't do a great job with that because you know you got millions of people running across the border. You got people in ISIS who've been caught coming across the border. You got people on the terror watch list coming across the border. You got a bunch of thousands of Chinese people. Right. I mean, these aren't Mexicans or Guatemalans. I mean, they are, but you got people coming from overseas that's coming across the southern border. She is the border czar. She's also the gun czar. You know, she was the person.
Once again, what I said was about it seen and heard from about as much as Vice President Pence was, which is not that much. Regardless of being appointed or whatever position, you haven't heard or seen either one of them like that during their terms.
That's the nature of being a vice president. I mean, what vice president has had a different, more visibility than Kamala Harris?
Well, Joe Biden had a bunch of visibility when he was vice president. Who was President Bush? Dan Quayle?
Dan Quayle's only visibility was being made fun of on late night TV.
Spell potato.
Right, exactly.
However, who was George Bush, the Bush son, vice president?
That was that's Dan Quayle.
The son?
Hold on, the son. No, that was Dick Cheney. I'm sorry,
Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
He had a big because he shot somebody in the face, right?
Well, Dick Cheney had a lot of visibility because of the Gulf War. Of course, before the war, he ran Halliburton. And we're talking about the second Gulf War. Yeah, he ran Halliburton, and he was very involved, and a lot of people saw him as the moving force behind the whole invasion and seeing it as a war prophet. But yeah, he had a lot of visibility. He's probably the one. He was the one who was tasked with leading the committee to find George Bush Jr., a vice president, and the person who he identified was himself.
There you go.
Hilarious to me, but yeah, I think he's probably the one.
I need to find my son a vice president. All right, sir, I'll do that. Come back, sir. I found him a vice president. Who? Me.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely insane.
All right. Well, here's the next big topic that has been in the news a lot lately. Some of these states, starting like with Louisiana, has done two things. One.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Can we back up for a second? Going back to the debate for a second. Have you seen all of the discussion about black jobs?
Oh, hey, I got a black job for you. I got a black job for you.
What's that?
You know what a black job is?
A black job.
Shit, I don't know. I don't fucking know. That's a good ass question. My point exactly. That shit sounds fucking retarded. What is a black job?
All right, so I didn't watch the debate. I've already said that. My understanding was there was a discussion about immigration. And perhaps the issue came up about immigrants taking black jobs. You watched the debate. Is that right? Is that the context in which it came up?
That's why I understood it. So I guess we're just landscapers or low-end jobs that, nobody else wants to do. I mean, I guess we can't be accountants. We can't be, the CEO of companies. I guess we can't be business owners. Hell, even a truck driver at this point, and truck drivers is not an easy job. It's a very respectable job. So I'm just trying to understand, what is a black job?
Well, in context, if you look at immigrants, illegal immigrants who come across the border. Most times they're poor. They don't have a lot of resources. They have low education. So the jobs that they qualify for, that they would fill, are typically manual labor, unskilled positions. Now, if you look at the statistics for people who live and work in the United States legally, Black people, percentage-wise, as compared to white people, are going to have more of those positions. That's just a fact. That when you talk about manual labor, percentage-wise, Black people are more likely to have those positions than white people. So in relation to immigration, when those folks come over to the United States and they get jobs, they're more likely to compete with Black people, a higher percentage of Black people than they are of white people. That's the context. Nobody said during the debate, neither candidate, to say that Black people only have low-paying jobs.
Well, one, they should have worded it differently. So that was the first mistake. Because if you're going to talk about a certain type of job, don't make it a race thing. Just say, hey, a lot of the manufacturing jobs that we have or manual labor jobs are the ones that they've been taking. So there's less opportunities for our citizens that are here legally to get these jobs than not. See, once again, it's not about what you say, it's about your delivery on a lot of things. And that's what made it offensive and add a lot of questions and made it a punchline for a lot of people, Black jobs.
No, what made it a punchline was the people making it a punchline, because I think the reason why it's a punchline is because they don't like the point. Here's the problem that I have with the whole issue, is that for every leftist idea, somehow they get Black people to talk the loudest in opposition against people who don't like that policy. You know, this whole people of color tagline that they use, that brown people or people of color coming up from Mexico, by doing that, by calling them people of color, they're joining, or they attempt to join or link their cause with the history, the painful history of Black people in the United States, and basically saying you're the same. Your struggle is joined with the struggle of immigrants from the South. Your struggle, Black people, is joined with the struggle of Palestinians over in the Middle East, and so you all are kindred. Okay, so you have to align with them. And I think it's completely nonsense that we are selling for very cheaply our historic pain in this country, and we are being exploited. And so what you have is, I hear people all the time talking about the Statue of Liberty. Give us your poor, give us your hungry, give us your tired. Just throw open the doors to the United States to everybody who wants to come here. And the fact of the matter is that those folks are they're competing with Black people for a lot of things, including jobs, including political influence, including resources. I saw videos from people in Chicago, people who live on the south side of Chicago, who are struggling, who aren't giving any advantage by their city with all of the challenges that it has. They're being displaced from recreation centers. They're being displaced from schools. Illegal immigrants are getting resources, cash stipends, hotel rooms that Black people who have lived there for decades and generations do not get.
I mean, 5-star hotels. I mean,
right, exactly.
Like they getting like between $5,000 and $7,000 a month, something like that, some crazy amount.
Worked in Chicago last summer, and outside of the apartment where he lived in downtown Chicago, it was just immigrants just living on the streets. They're I mean, you know, they're in the hotels, they're living in the police stations, they're living in hangars and terminals at O'Hare Airport. And there's in various states, they're soaking up large portions of the budget based upon taxes that people pay, including Black people, who don't get the breaks from the tax money that they pay, and is giving to these people that's coming across the border. So yeah, They are competitors. They're competitors for jobs. They're competitors for resources. They're competitors for education. They're competitors for influence. It's not to say that you have any hatred towards immigrants, that you dislike immigrants, that immigrants are lesser people, but it's about having order. It's about doing things the right way. Because there's a lot of people who wait years and years, sometimes more than a decade, to legally come into the United States. And then they go and they have a ceremony in federal court and they dress up and they invite their families to come because they did it the right way. And then you have people who just walk across the border and given all of these benefits, and it's unfair. And so when you talk about Black jobs, I think what was done during the debate is to point out that these immigrants, many of them are taking opportunities from Black people, and to point that out is somehow racist. I think is absolutely ridiculous. It's great for a meme. It's great for a laugh that you can post some videos. Here I am, a lawyer. This is my Black job. It wasn't to suggest that everybody Black has a low-paying position. That wasn't the point. But
I mean,
one thing that they cannot have is Black people finally recognizing that we aren't the arbiters. We are not the cheerleaders for everybody who wants to call themselves a person of color or the downtrodden or the little guy. Why does it always have to be us who sacrifices and join our struggle with theirs? Hey, let them fight their struggle, but it doesn't mean that it's connected to ours.
At all. Me and you are two different people. That's how I see it. Your fight is your fight. I don't know what it's like to be you. You don't know what it's like to be me. However, we should know what it's like to be a human being and want to do better for ourselves. Period.
We agree on that. So you was about to talk about Louisiana. What's going on in Louisiana?
So, man, Louisiana, two things. The governor has put the 10 Commandments up in all the classrooms. Also, the banning, you have a couple states that banned it, transgenders from competing in girl or female sports that have been put up. So now you have the parent groups and the LGBTQ community. I know in Louisiana, suing the state, going against the governor for having the 10 Commandments put up, and also about competing in sports. Now, as we talked about on previous episode, about transgenders and female sports, I agree. They should not compete with the females because you're not a female. I don't care how bad you want to be one. Science states male, female. Proven. You want to use science. However, a female can reproduce, having eggs, having a period, all of that stuff, and the male provides the sperm to fertilize the egg. We know this. Some of them want to be female so bad, talking about they don't own periods. Well, the females don't even want a period their damn self. They would happily give it to you if they could. However, they can't. They're female. You going into the female sports, doing these things, and you're a male, it gives you an advantage. And like we said before, I don't want no person, which we had some that are out there that are, especially like in the basketball. I know it was a guy, he was like 6'7", going through playing basketball, big guy, looked like an offensive linebacker, playing basketball with the females and dominating. You have another one that couldn't win a fight as an MMA fighter, as a guy, transitioned to a female, and is beating the snot out of these females. And then at the end of the fight, you hear, "Yeah, I'm ready for anybody that wants to come next. I'm here to stay." Like, seriously? Come on now. Then you have the track and field. You have those that have been running in track and field. Same thing.
Swimming?
My whole thing is, if you want to be a transgender athlete, okay, fine. Hey, that's on you and your choice. However, have your own league. But you shouldn't be competing with females. The females aren't competing with the males. You don't see females playing in the NBA or going against them. You don't see them coming and playing in the NFL and college football because a lot of them will get destroyed. destroyed. And it's not fair to them and me as a parent, and it's unfair to all the other female athletes that put in all this hard work to be the best and to
Why do you,
achieve certain goals, and then you come and rob them of that.
why do you think that's happening now? I mean, why do you think this movement has accelerated to the degree that it has, and this is such a big issue in 2024?
One, the government has allowed them to move the way they move. What's crazy to me is that the LGBTQ, whatever they are, the community, the movement has come where they have made these great strides of getting all the things that they wanted to on their agenda, but the black community still hasn't gotten much of anything achieved from their agenda. And the government is quick to give them what they want, but slow to give us what we want to fight on everything. And they put so many chokeholds on what you can and can't do that gives them an advantage and makes it hard for anything to be pushed back for them. They're like, it's in a way, I feel like they're forcing you to accept this stuff. And now I think that more people are starting to be fed up and starting to push back against it and be like, come on now. Look, enough is enough. One thing I do agree on that every person should be treated with dignity and respect and as a human being, period. I don't care what your sexuality is, that's your choice. You know, don't force your sexuality on me, and I'm not forcing mine on you. And you're not going to force it on my kids, you
Well,
know.
that movement, if there's a lot of people who are gay and lesbian who disagree with the tactics of the transgender movement and some of the characterizations that are made and things that's going on with that movement. So it's important not to lump those together. While there may be some
True, true.
similarities, they're not the same. But I remember when Barack Obama was president, this is another one of these movements that was linked intentionally the with black people, and they used the momentum and the history of black people in this country to say we're like them. That if you're against discrimination for black people, you have to be against discrimination for gay people because it's the same, and it's not the same. Now you
No,
can
it's
talk
not.
about discrimination, and you can make your argument about how gays are discriminated against or were discriminated against and transgender, but it's not the same as being a black person.
Mm-mm.
It's different, and it irritated me to no end when that happened. I remember Barack Obama was speaking at the Pettus Bridge on the anniversary of one of the marches, the march across the Pettus Bridge in Alabama. And
Yeah, Selma.
yeah, and I'm listening to the speech and he's talking about gay rights. I mean, listen, if you're in San Francisco and they're commemorating Harvey Milk Day and that's when you talk about it, fine. But that wasn't the purpose of that movement. That was about civil rights and how black people were treated. And then you have black people who speak the loudest, who are called upon to use the culture, the history of the pain of black people in this country to advance other movements. Those movements then far outpace any progress that black people made using black people
Mm-hmm.
as their spokespeople, using black people's history, and we get left behind. And it's happening with immigration. It's happening with the Palestinian movement. It happened with the LBGT issues, and we keep falling for it. And that's what this whole black jobs thing is about. We fall for the same okey doke every single time.
And like we said, go ahead.
And that's the problem. So when it comes to the Ten Commandments, listen, I think it's probably going to get struck down because do you remember all the Ten Commandments? Do you know from Sunday
I
school?
mean, I'm not. No, I don't remember all the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt love thy neighbor. Thou shalt obey You shall obey your parents. You know, these are the law of the land and laws of the Lord and some other stuff. Man, no, I don't. I'm not gonna sit here and lie.
You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not
Yeah.
make idols. You
You
shall
reading
not.
off the computer.
I am.
You
I'm
read,
cheating.
yeah. Don't be trying to act like you know it off rip. You'll
I'm
remember.
not I tell you what, I don't know. I don't remember. And I violated most of them. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so yeah. So listen, I mean, these are good rules to live by, but it's
But the
amazing.
separation of church and state.
That's not well. That's not even in the Constitution. It says that
No.
government shall not establish a religion, but it says that it doesn't say that there's a separation between church and state. But it's amazing to me that somebody can be offended by posting the Ten Commandments in a classroom. These same people don't have a problem with a teacher encouraging a student to go have his balls cut off and not tell the
Or
parents about it.
or a person to come in there with a full beard, lipstick, and lashes on, talking about story time with the drag queen.
Yeah,
Or
or a fully
or
developed, a post-pubescent boy sharing a locker room with girls.
or vice versa. The
Yeah,
female turning into a dude, growing facial hair, still got boobs. Like explaining this.
yeah. So it's amazing what people get offended about. I don't have any problem. Me personally, I don't have a problem with the Ten Commandments being posted. I sent two of my kids, to a school where, I mean, they did more than that. They went to a private school, and I think values should be taught in school. And that's the problem with a lot of students, that values are not taught, or the wrong values are taught.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting
Mm-hmm.
to see people who have absolutely no problem with the weirdness that's going on in schools, the changes that we're going to see in the new Title IX stuff. When that drops, man, it's going to be a whole lot of people who've been sitting on the sidelines, not paying attention, and they're going to be shocked when these rules change, and they're not going to recognize their schools anymore.
So let me ask you this: if President Trump gets elected again, do you see Title IX getting stripped?
Oh, he's not going to. Donald Trump is not going to allow these changes that are proposed now. I mean, the changes that are proposed now, that children would be able to decide what what bathrooms they go to, and the schools have to honor that because a child is confused. You're going to have boys in the girls' bathroom, girls in the boys' bathroom. They're gonna apply the same standards to sports as well. That's what they're moving towards. That's going to create a lot of confusion and unfairness. The principal, the administration won't be able to do anything about it. It'll be against the law for parents to protest, to object to it, and all of the language and the policy of the schools would have to be changed. So it's going to be shocking to a lot of people. Now, there have been some courts who have stepped in already because some states have challenged it, saying that these changes cannot be made in these particular states. So you're going to have a patchwork throughout the United States that it's going to apply in some states, Title IX. The changes might apply some places, but it won't apply other places. And I think the United States Supreme Court is going to have to step in. But I think more important than that, the people have to make better decisions about who they put in office, because I think these things are very damaging. Aside from sports, I mean, the sports stuff is very damaging. It was a swimmer, Riley Gaines, and she's been very public because Leah Thomas, this man who calls himself Leah Thomas, just came in and dominated in swimming. But Riley Gaines talked about how much these kids, or how much she personally invested in her sport. These are people who are just doing things for entertainment. When it comes to swimming, I mean, you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you get in that cold water to practice before class. And then you go to class. And then after school, you practice for several more hours. And you're traveling all over the country. And your parents are investing money and time for you to be a strong competitor in that sport. And you achieve great success and great results. And here comes some unremarkable dude who couldn't compete with other males and hops in the pool with a bunch of women and just breaks all types of records and beats them by multiple seconds, when typically there's fractions of a second between first and last place. And it's just absolutely horrific. And you know what's upsetting to me about it is that I know, and we know people in who teach children's sports and girls, and they know that is an unfair advantage for a boy of the same age to come race against them, but they're silent about it because they it's more important to them, and they love these kids, and they make sacrifices for these kids, and I see the sacrifices that they're making, but they're scared to say something because they don't want to lose their job. They don't want to lose their standing in the community. And that's important. You have a family to feed. But I think at some point you have to stand up for principle and stand up for what's right. And they don't want to have the same, they don't want to have the same position that I can't have the same position that Donald Trump has. That's going to make me a racist. And they don't want to be aligned with somebody who's a racist. They don't want to be aligned with somebody on the other side. But what are you doing to the kids that you represent? What are you doing to the kids that you support? What are you doing to the kids that you coach? You know, that's why for me, issues are more important than party. Issues are more important than that person that you vote for. Identify the issues that are important to you. And instead of focusing on personality, you know, as a coach, as a parent, as a teacher, as an administrator, your responsibility is to protect and look out for those children. And you cannot sell them out to politics. Forget what the party is. What's important, and make sure that you pick people whose policies are important to you. Okay, and that's the and I don't think there's racist about that.
No, there's nothing racist about that. But I think the swimmer was it Gaines, whatever.
Riley Gaines.
Gaines had to give the medals back. The court ruling that.
No. I'm sorry. Leah Thomas is the man.
All right. Well, Thomas had to give the medals back, and I think they wiped it out. I believe, if I read it correctly.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that, and he's not the only one. They did rule.
No, he's not. He's not. But I do think that happened with that. And look, being a former athlete myself, you damn right I'd be pissed. 2 days of practice in the hot sun, running 4 corners, 110s, suicides, you know, traveling. Hey, the sacrifice my body went through getting in the ice baths and, you know, hot tubs and swimming pools and stretching and being in meetings and all that stuff. And man, yeah, I'm gonna be upset because that's a lot of sacrifice. The money you pay for Little League at Sports Now is crazy. You talking about $1,000 or more for this stuff and traveling around. Yeah, I got a problem with that.
I would not let my daughter compete. Even after having made all those sacrifices, and the boy appears on the starting line, I'm pulling her out. And that's it, because that's absolutely, you might as well put a horse up there. I mean, you know, I'm not saying the child is a horse, but you know, that's how unfair it is. So no, and it's absolutely, the fact that we even have to have that discussion it is stupid. It is stupid, and it pains me. I have conversations with people that I grew up with, and people who I know are smart and intelligent, but their ideological alignment prevents them from using their common sense, and they're sold out their ideology. And the frightening part to me is that if you're not willing to protect children from demented people in your own party, then we're in serious trouble as a society.
Hey, I call it like I see it. They just, you got a lot of book smart people, but common sense, they're very dumb because they don't have that much of it. But I mean, hence the world we live in, unfortunately. What we got next, big bro?
So the U.S. Surgeon General, his name is, I think his first name is Vivek as well. He was Barack Obama's Surgeon General, has declared gun violence a public health crisis. and um, so there's going to be a more focus on guns because Joe Biden still talks about gun control. He wants to ban assault weapons. Now, he hasn't said that it will be his policy to confiscate quote unquote assault weapons, but I think at a minimum, legislation, if he is successful, would prevent the sale or transfer of AR-15s and other scary looking long guns. And so that's something that's going to still be an issue, perhaps in this election. Yeah.
My
And so
stance is like it's been.
Go ahead.
My stance is like it's been. It ain't the guns that hurt people. It's the people who operate the firearm that hurt people. You know, gun violence has been an issue for many years, but nobody really seemed to care that much in a lot of places. I mean, it's the inner cities. You have Chicago, you have Baltimore, you Detroit, New York, LA. I mean, all these places. Then you got Montgomery, Alabama, Miami, Florida. Shoot, even here and where I live at, the gun violence has gone up. However, you're dealing with the funding of the police departments and what laws are out there where the prosecutor can actually prosecute people and make them stick, or what the prosecutor's agenda is that you've elected, the district attorney that you elected. What are their true agenda? Like for here, man, we had a district attorney, people getting caught, but they getting slapped on the wrist, so they right back on the street doing the same thing. So it's like we do all this work to catch them. So the cops are getting fed up, their communities are getting fed up, but you still getting paid, for not doing your job. So once again, we have to wake up and understand who, like you said, who we're putting in office. So when you vote for your DA, understand what their true agenda is and what their track record is like.
Well,
deal with this issue.
With this whole gun issue, it's hard to put that genie back in the bottle. I mean, you have probably more guns in circulation in this country than you have people. And if I don't know how you undo that, or if you should undo that. It's enshrined in our Constitution. The right to bear arms shall not be infringed. And so, I don't know how you change that. I think it's a God-given right to be able to have to defend yourself. And me, I'm the head of my household. And I'm not ashamed to say that. And it's a man's responsibility to protect his family. I'm also not afraid to say that. And you have to use every means at your disposal to protect your family. And the criminals out here have guns.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to be able to effectively defend your family unless you have effective tools in order to do that. And I don't know, when it comes, there's a lot of people who believe AR-15s and all guns should be banned because some countries do that. And don't believe many of these politicians who say they're for gun control saying they don't want to take your handguns, because if you catch them in a relaxed moment, they have said that. Hillary Clinton said it. And I, to some degree, I believe Kamala Harris has said it. If you catch, now a lot of times they don't understand guns and gun terminology, and sometimes they slip up. But you catch them in their moment of honesty, they will say that they want guns confiscated.
What's crazy? The people they got protecting them got guns.
Right.
So would you want them protecting you and not have a gun?
And they live in gated communities and they have a phalanx of security. But the average person, the single mother living in a bad neighborhood, she can't have a gun to protect her family. What about women
giving her a whistle,
or women who've been threatened with sexual violence and rape? They can't have a gun to protect themselves. Come on, give me a break.
They want them to stick with pepper spray and mace, and hopefully a whistle or something will work. And that ain't how that works. They have the right to protect themselves and their child. Period. Nobody should feel violated by anybody, first of all. And you have the right to protect any property of yours and stand your ground within the means, within the law. Period. Because if you come in here and you ain't invited and you come up in my house, well, get ready to meet Jesus.
And you know what's particularly galling to me, TJ, is that there's a committee now to there was a gun violence summit in Atlanta on June 18th, headed by Kamala Harris, and she's on video and on TV and at a press conference meeting with Quavo from the Migos. You know, for anti-gun violence, and that's all Quavo raps about is drugs, money, violence, and materialism. These people cannot be serious about stopping gun violence when you got Glorilla coming to the White House and Kamala Harris is playing Sexy Red. And even though these are female rappers who talk a lot about sex and materialism, they also talk about doing drive-bys and guns, including Glorilla and who's the other one?
Cardi?
The Stallion, Megan Thee Stallion.
Megan Thee Stallion?
Yeah, there was pictures that she took with Michelle Obama at some party. And there's no way that while Kamala Harris might not know Quavo's lyrics, certainly her people do. Certainly her staffers do. And you know, Quavo has lyrics talking about he got guns. He said, I got big guns, they hitting. I trap out the bando, meaning that he sells drugs out of the drug house, just chopping the chickens. That means you know, breaking down kilos of cocaine, and talks about choppers and 50 rounds in the drum. And this is the person that you invite to the anti-gun summit. You aren't a serious person if you do that. And so you promote and put on display what you support, what you encourage. And by meeting with this clown, you endorse to a lot of young people that this person is somebody to look up to. And they go and they listen to the lyrics and it gets in their spirit, it gets in their soul, and they think that type of behavior is okay. And so I think that you have permission to ignore their statements about gun control because they've demonstrated that they aren't serious. When you align yourself with these type of people, these quote unquote entertainers who have done so much damage in the Black community. Now I have a confession. I grew up on rap music and I still have an appetite for it. I am like an alcoholic who's in recovery because I understand the damage that this music has done. I'm a professional. I am not about to go out there and mimic the behavior that's encouraged by rappers or that rappers glorify. But still, it is not a healthy endeavor. And even for me, somebody who's 51, somebody who still enjoys the beat, especially when I work out. I mean, that's when I listen to it. I listen to comedy or something when I'm in the car. I rarely listen to music during my leisure time. I'm doing other things, but I do listen to music when I work out. And the music that I listened to for motivation was hip hop music, rap music. And it's not the type of music that I would listen to in front of young children or in front of polite company. I listen to it in my headphones, but I said, is that hypocritical? Because I'm out here speaking about the damage that these lyrics do. But by streaming this music, in the past, I purchased it. I'm basically funding this negativity. I made a decision. I made a decision to stop being inconsistent, and I just stopped listening to it. I went cold turkey. I will not stream it. I put together some great playlists that took me a lot of time and a lot of hours, and that I paid for. But like I said, I still enjoy it. There's foods that I love to eat that I don't eat anymore. There's people who I enjoy to hang out with that I don't hang out with anymore. Sometimes doing the right thing means giving up things that you enjoy. But
so let me actually
go ahead.
So I got something for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
I see dead
You
people.
can't play anything that's copyrighted.
So I'm just saying that right there lets me know, You got people like Kendrick, lyricist, J. Cole, lyricist, KRS-One, lyricist, you know, that that are out there and willing to speak. So when you're talking about people that talked about violence and this and that, let me ask you a question. Tukey Williams, they say he was one of the founders of the Crips. Bunch of violence. He was an anti-gang counselor during the day, but the gang leader at night. That's what he did. Youth counselor during the day, gang leader at night. Went to jail, convicted with being with the murders, drug trafficking, and firearms, all of that stuff. But ended up writing children books and mentoring people in jail. They got this guy to do it, who was a killer, gun smuggler, and helped get together with one of the most notorious gangs ever known to mankind. Were they wrong for having them speak and do these things? And he wrote a children's book.
No, absolutely not. That goes back to the initial part of this discussion, this stream today, when we're talking about ex-offenders, giving them opportunities because they have something to contribute. They have something to talk about. They've been through the fire. They've walked that walk. They can talk about how negatively it impacted their lives and the damaging effect that it has and how you can go about redeeming yourself. So I don't have any problem with that, but that's not what these rappers are doing.
And that's the point that I was going to make, that a lot of these rappers nowadays aren't really talking about it, and they're like, hey, this is what I've been. There's very few rappers that have done it, but most of them that have been in that lifestyle and doing it, a lot of them are dying, dead from that lifestyle catching up to them because they never really let it go. So when you talk, I lost my brother Nicky to gun violence. He was murdered, chased down, gunned down in the alley. I didn't go out and shoot anybody. I can talk about the effects of what gun violence has on a family and what it does. I can talk about how my dad, he used to just not let me go places and snatch me up because of the fear that he might lose another son. I can't tell you how many times, hey, you hear a loud noise at night. My dad came, just to look at me to make sure, hey, I'm okay. All for losing a son to gun violence. I can tell you about that. But at the end of the day, it's up to us to educate our people on how to have gun safety, how to operate, and back to us policing our own communities once again. The men need to step up in the communities once again like they used to do. And that's part of the problem. We don't have enough structure in a lot of places to make sure we guide these people in the right direction. One, we need to open up the rec centers and give these kids something to do. Open up funding some of these other programs that they have shut down. And a lot of them don't have stuff to do. So what are they going to do? Find other things to do. And unfortunately, the other things are the wrong things. And we got to make sure we do our part. And even teaching about gun safety. I'm starting to teach my kids about it. My daughter just turned 10. And guess what? She's now of legal age to go to the gun range here. And I'm going to take her. She's like, hey, Dad, when are we going to go? Baby, I'm going to take you. But I'm going to take her on a non-busy day at the range to get her used to it. But these are things that we do, that we need to start doing more of, to help with this. But we got to find other ways to get these kids active and occupy their time to be more creative with their talents that they have.
Yeah. Well, you can't send kids mixed signals.
No.
If you're on the way to school, dropping your kids off, and you tell them, don't use foul language in school. If you got boys, respect women. Respect girls. If you got girls, respect yourself. Don't be violent. And on the radio, on the way to school, you playing Migos and Quavo, where they talk about calling women bees and hoes and talking about the materialism, talking about shooting people, and you're not speaking out against that. And the kids look at the TV and they see the same people saying that at the White House. It renders your words meaningless because again, you highlight what you encourage, and so you can't. People, we're in denial because we enjoy this music so much. We don't even hear the negativity anymore, but our kids do, and nothing hurts me more. It hurts my heart when I see these little kids imitating these rappers. You know these lyrics before you know the ABCs. You can't spell your name. You don't know your address, but you know the lyrics to that stupid song that your mama listened to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Reinforcing all of that negativity and that violence. And because our generation, your generation and my generation, we as adolescents and young people, we grew up on this music. It wasn't quite as harsh as it is now, but it's developed into that. The music is seductive, the beats are seductive. It sounds very good for somebody who was brought up in that culture, but we need to stop and think about how it's damaging the psyche of these young people. And I discourage it for young people because they're in their formative years, and for many young people who are unmoored and don't have guideposts and parents to teach them the right way, this music is a roadmap for life. They think this is reality. And I see these rappers, man, especially the rappers that we grew up on, their kids now are graduating from college. And I see Jeezy at his child's graduation and these rappers at their children's graduation. Do you know how many people didn't go to college and thought that street hustling was the key to success because you the snowman? But you didn't live like that. I mean, I don't know what Jeezy did in his younger years, but you don't live that life anymore. You're not about that. Your kid going to some private school, graduate from college. You know how many lives you destroyed with the lifestyle that you promoted? But they have their success. Some of these people are just studio gangsters selling this violence. And I fought them, and not only them, but the record companies, because these are multi-billion-dollar, multinational corporations who decide that they're going to promote some artists, not because of their talent. You think Sexy Red has any innate talent? Somebody decided we're just going to promote this person.
Sookie with the good coochie. No talent.
And promote these messages. And it just creates damage and havoc in the Black community. Beyond that, and this is the last point I'm going to make on this. We went to the drive-in with my family. And
they still got those?
They still got those. And there was a movie, I forget what the movie was, but Snoop Dogg, who's doing some promotion for the Olympics. If you watch the Olympic trials, he's on there. But he has a rap in this kids movie. Okay, and that's fine because Snoop is he's doing stuff with Martha Stewart. He's got game shows, and he's like this big corporate ad person now. But if a child sees that and becomes interested in Snoop Dogg as an artist, what if that child goes and listens to some of his early work? I remember when I was in college, the song came on, and the refrain of the song by Snoop was "Bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks."
I remember that song.
Of course you do. I mean, it's a very popular song. But what does that do to a 7-year-old? Because we know in many portions of the Black community, the word bitch is a term of endearment. That's my bitch. That's like saying that's my girlfriend. That's my bitch. And
I don't know what damn endearment that is.
Oh man, please. I don't know. Well, the people listening, they know. That's the way they talk and refer to each other. And the woman would say, that's my N-word. You my N-word, you my B-word. And so a child listening to a song that's saying that's that Snoop Dogg song that I just mentioned, well, that child hears that I ain't nothing but a hoe and a trick. What does that do to psyche to that young person? Does that person believe that she can grow up and be a corporate leader, to be a physician, to be an officer in the military, to be anything that's worthy of being.
Let me ask you this.
And absolutely not. That's how damaging this music is. And we wonder why we get the results in the Black community that we get, that why we have single digit proficiency level in reading and science and math. Because you have music that tell these children they're not going to amount to anything but being a criminal or somebody on the street or somebody who has loose morals.
I agree with what you're saying to a certain extent, because a lot of that still goes to the parents and the involvement that the parent has in that child's life and what they're doing to be involved to make sure their child is doing what they need to do in school. And we're talking about the influence that entertainers have, but let's talk about the influence that the everyday people that these kids see have on them. The people have. If you got that pastor that's talking about you got to be a good Christian and follow the word of God, but you up here, you got a baby here and you messing with sister so and so on the church, what damage does that do to the child? If you got, like you said, the dad that's supposed to be a loving husband and be there for the wife and love on her, but they see him beat the mess out of their mama, what effect does that have on the child? Or what effect does it have on the child to see your mama sell her body? Or what effect does it have to see like your brother's supposed to be promising to do something, but now they're not there no more? Or let's just say that teacher you thought had your back and was supporting you now is not there for you and may tell you you ain't gonna amount to nothing. So
Bro,
we're not talking. We talking about an impact of that celebrity. Yeah, they do that. But we also got a lot of impacts within the community of everyday people that affects the outcome of these people, of these kids, even young adults that are damaged. So once again, a lot of times we put a lot of responsibilities on entertainers or teachers or, hey, expect them. It's like they're raising our kids in a sense. In some instances they are. But at what point do we put the responsibility back on the parents and being more involved in doing your job as a parent to make sure your kids succeed? Now, growing up in mommy house, mommy being the God-fearing woman that she is, I remember she broke a CD. It was a Busta Rhymes CD I had. And the CD wasn't even mine. It wasn't even mine. I borrowed it just to listen to it, be like, oh, okay, cool. And it was my backpack. Mommy went through my backpack. I'm like, why are you going through my stuff? Is this my house? Yes. Okay, so what's in my house? Did I buy this backpack? Yes, so I can go through whatever I bought. It's mine too. I bought it. And she went through it. And I'm like, yo, Mom, why'd you break that? Because that wasn't even my CD. It's in my house. And I told you this is type of music ain't allowed in my house. But I'm like, you could have at least asked me first and I would have told you like what was what, and now I gotta go pay for it. It's being involved with your in what's going on with your kids and making sure they hit a level. And I think a lot or however you want to see it goes back to the parents expecting other people to do their job of raising their kids and making sure things are, hey, being done a certain way. That doesn't mean if you do everything you're supposed to do, it's still going to turn out the way it should turn out. I'm not saying that, but they have a big responsibility in the turnout and what's going on as a parent.
Listen, let me tell you something. I know people who are educated, who have doctorate degrees, who listen to this music with their children. I mean, these are educated people,
right?
So you have the parent endorsing this music, and I don't buy this whole argument that it's okay if they listen to it as long as you give them some good examples. That's like saying, if you eat arsenic or poison, just eat your vegetables because it'll balance out. No, when kids are in their formative years and they have this unique medium called music that's seductive music, words that are set to music and the beat is memorable. It's not like listening to a speech. You can listen to the I Have a Dream speech. You're gonna remember certain parts of it. I have seen the mountaintop but you're not going to remember the entire text of the speech because that's not how our brain works. But if you set that speech to music and the words rhyme and you listen to it over and over and over and over again, like you do music, like you do a song that you like, then it's going to get into your spirit and you are going to remember the words for a lifetime. For a lifetime. That's why music is unique. That's why it's so dangerous when you have the wrong messages sent in the music. So I don't think it's good to discount it and say, as long as you got good parents, then it's okay. What a good parent is going to do is make sure you don't listen to it. That's what a good parent is going to do. Now, I know that, it's a part of our culture. People listening to it, people might be offended at that. I think we need to rethink how we interact with our children and the messages and the images that we allow them to see. And what you see now is in children's programming, it's changing. It's changing. And they are trying to, when I say they, I mean the corporations are trying to send our children certain messages.
Yeah.
And in many ways is damaging. And the question for parents is going to be, what values are important to you? And what you allow your children to see and ingest and meditate on and focus on and dwell in should be consistent with those principles that you want them to have.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree with you on that standpoint. It just, we got a lot to work on, man, as individuals, as people in the community, as a nation, man. We got a lot to work on. And right now it seems like we're going backwards so fast it don't make no sense.
True. All right. So let's on a lighter note, let's end this on a lighter note. We've been going for a while. Everybody's talking about the LA Lakers. A couple of new developments. They've hired JJ Redick, who might have some experience as a coach coaching a church league for third graders or something like that for a year. I don't think he's ever won a championship on any level, and who's gotten the job being the head coach of the most visible team in the league, who the same team drafted LeBron James Jr. with their 55th pick. He played for USC, who is not in a very challenging division, I think he averaged three points a game.
I think it was like 4 or 6 points a game, but I'm gonna be honest. If it wasn't for LeBron being his daddy, he wouldn't even be getting the attention that he's getting, because with those stats, he's on the same level as Stephen A. Smith for one season, as far as stats. I'm just saying. That's being honest.
Yeah.
His upside of potential is up there. But again, it's like Rich Paul said. When you got a business, dude, these other people they coming out using their mommy and daddy name and getting advantages, out there in the world. This is no different. How you gonna be mad for him being able to stand on business and his daddy, his name mean a lot and he's using it to his advantage, just like anybody else do. If you're looking at the Walmart family, the Waltons, they kids come out and reap the benefits from their parents, and everything is no different. And on that side, he's absolutely right, and you can't be mad at that standpoint. You can't be mad at LeBron for setting his sons up for success the way that he did. It was brilliant business idea and marketing on him saying like, yeah, I want to play with my son, this and that. And now the Lakers drafting him, so now the Lakers are guaranteed to keep LeBron, and he's a free agent. He's going to sign. Now, to the coach, JJ Redick, I don't agree with it. How do you get JJ Redick and you bypass Sam Cassell, who's a well-respected coach in the NBA, who has championships, who's been an assistant coach for over 10 years, and everywhere that he's went, he's been impactful as a coach. He was impactful as a player. You have so many. Hell, you have Mark Jackson. That was the head coach of the Golden State Warriors that got everything started with them and implemented the offense and gave them the freedom to become the Splash Brothers, mentoring them. So how do you just jump to JJ Redick? To me, it's the same thing that the Brooklyn Nets did when they hired Steve Nash, who had no prior coaching experience, and you see how that ended up. They fired his ass real quick after it because he couldn't manage the team.
You know, these people are so. I agree with everything you said, but it's so funny, man, when you get to these talking heads like Stephen A. Smith. Now, Stephen A. is entertaining, but
I love that call. You
Yeah.
got freaking JJ Redick, and I'm telling you, this man is going to get the job done. Now we got Bronny, and I'm telling you, LeBron.
Well, listen,
my
man,
God.
listen. You watch his show, you can't watch First Take or ESPN. It's Women in Sports Week. It's Asian Pacific Islander in Sports Week. We need more black coaches, and Colin Kaepernick and black coaches haven't gotten a chance. But because JJ Redick was made featured appearances on First Take with Stephen A. That's his friend, that's his boy. All of a sudden, you don't have any arguments about black coaches and white coaches getting opportunities that black coaches would never get without having any experience. He don't have anything to say because he came from your channel. That's why, you know, people, they talk about their principles and what's important to them when it comes to intersectionality and race and all these other issues. But when it comes time for them to demonstrate it, all of a sudden these principles that they have are compromised. And you realize it's not really that important to them. It's just a talking point. And it kind of irritates me. That's all. I don't have any problem with LeBron James. Nepotism, man, it's in every industry. And they don't have any problem when they do it.
Nope.
I don't have any problem with LeBron looking out for his son.
Nope. Not
It's only
at all.
only a problem when we do it.
Yeah, exactly. So look, I wish Bronny the best. You know what I'm saying? I hope he turns out to what everybody says he could be. I hope what they say he could be, he will be. You know, and I just want that for him. And I'm just grateful that the James family is able to stand on business and set themselves up for success because he's a true from rags to riches story, you know, straight up. And he did everything his way. He's done things that seems to be the right way that
Absolutely.
you can't say nothing. Being involved in the community where he grew up at, he wasn't just talking about it, he's being about it. He built the school there. He set up programs for the parents to get training and get jobs and set it up for the students to go to school, the local universities to keep the money within the city and the state for free on scholarships, maintaining their GPAs. So, hey, kudos to him. Kudos to him for setting up his life after basketball as well with the different companies. So do it. The Spielbergs do it, the Kennedys do it, the Bushes do it, the Waltons do it. You know, everybody else can do it, like you said. The Buses do it, but we can't do it. Denzel Washington son couldn't. There's a problem because he's Denzel's son. That he's getting a gig. You know, that's the only reason why you're getting it. So the only reason why you got this job is because your daddy is the president.
Right. All right, man. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Episode 8.
Sir.
And it's been a great one. So we will talk again next week. Enjoy your 4th of July holiday.
Indeed. Please be safe. Don't be holding on to firecrackers and fireworks in your hand before you be missing some phalanges. All right. Look, let them go. All right. Don't do like we used to do, put M80s on people's doorsteps and mailboxes. Okay.
Man, don't tell all our secrets. Don't tell all our secrets. Okay. Love you, brother.
Hey, once again, man, great episode, man. May God keep y'all, man, you know, until we meet each other again, man. God bless you. Love you. Same time, same place.
All right. Out.